All right, welcome back to another amazing episode of the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. Today's guest, Don Skaggs, is a powerhouse in the world of inventing, a subject near and dear to my heart. He has been an entrepreneur and business strategist for years with over 2 decades of hands-on experience. Don has mastered the art of bootstrapping startups from wild ideas to profitable exits. From negotiating with multinational corporations to launching game-changing products, he's done it all. As president of the Inventors Network Kentucky, Don leads a thriving community of innovators, offering the education and support they need to bring their ideas to life. He's also the driving force behind the Folsom Group and Empowered Inventing, where he provides courses, consulting, and high-impact content, including his popular Empowering Inventing TV YouTube channel, to help inventors and entrepreneurs turn inspiration into execution. Throughout his career, Don has pioneered new technologies, developed product lines, and even orchestrated company acquisitions. He's co-founded US Biotech Corporation, making waves in the pathology lab industry, and later founded 3Gen Scientific, a specialty product developer for life sciences. With multiple patents under his belt and a CBA from the Gatton College of Business and Economics, Don isn't just an inventor, he's a business architect. If you've ever wondered what it takes to take an idea and turn it into a thriving business, Don Skaggs is the expert you need to hear from. And with that, welcome to the show, Don.
Hey, Drew.
I meant to give you some applause. You got a
It's all good. I'll take it before or after.
So, I just want to say to the audience here, Don is a longtime friend of mine. Some of the guests on here I've met recently, but Don and I met back in my early days of coming back to Kentucky, and he has been a constant supporter and positive influence for me personally and for the innovation and entrepreneur ecosystem here in Kentucky. It is a true treat to have Don on the show here.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Drew.
Yeah. And Don has an amazing show. Is that the YouTube channel that I mentioned? What's your show that I've been on a couple of times?
Empowered Inventing TV. We have a live stream that we do once a month on there called Inventor Friday. And,
okay.
It's on a Friday. And you can tune in. Just go to YouTube.
It's a good time. I mean, we talk. My show is kind of interview style, where we chat over what people are up to right now. But that show is a much longer format, and it's fun. We talk a little bit of history, like innovation in history and modern topics. And there's normally 3 or 4 guests on. It's a good time.
Yep. It's a bunch of nerdy entrepreneurs hanging out on a Friday night.
Yeah, which is that's the way it should be. I think that we get very wrapped around the axle about this is who we're supposed to be. And we all feel like we don't have enough time. If you check your screen time on your phone, you probably have more time than you think.
Oh, yes.
But that's the way it's supposed to be, is good friends who are kind of in the common industry, just jawing about the passions that they have. So that's cool.
Absolutely.
So before, I want the audience to understand why I'm such a big fan of you. So talk to me about formaldehyde.
Oh, well, that takes me back. So we back in, and this is going to tell on how old I am. Back in the 1990s, kids, that was before 2000. I bootstrapped a company out of a farmhouse in Eastern Kentucky, at a place in Eastern Kentucky where if I'd asked anybody, that they said, no, you can't do that there. Well, nobody told us we couldn't do it, so we did it. We out of a farmhouse, we bootstrapped a company that made specialty products for the pathology laboratory industry. One of them being a formaldehyde neutralizer, actually a product that would irreversibly change formaldehyde to 100% non-toxic material in less than 15 minutes. And yes, that was my elevator pitch for that product. Loaded up samples into a little 1991 Mercury Tracer wagon and went around from hospital to hospital acting like we weren't in a farmhouse. And we grew out of the farmhouse, and had a factory, employees, grew at 23 years, had over 150 products by the end of it all, and had acquisition. We got acquired by a company out in Texas called Stat Lab. And at that point, I was kind of at one of those what's next for me moments. And I really had a passion, I found, for helping other people kind of do what I did: start lean, start bootstrap, start small, with a great idea, and a good opportunity. What we say a lot of times is we help you help other people by taking your great idea, the right opportunity, mixing that with sound wisdom so you can turn them into real things like products and businesses. And that's what we do at the Inventors Network.
Yeah, I love it. And it's true. He has I've gotten to, in the early part of the show, when you go do a podcast with him, you get to meet the community, and everybody is talking about the progress that they've made on their inventions over the last month. And then they all sign NDAs and they all help each other. It's a really cool startup ecosystem. It's very, very fun.
Yeah. The workshops are great. Yeah. We go around the room, we'd introduce everybody. Then we go around the room again and everybody gets a chance to tell about, this is where I'm at, this is what I have, this is where I'm stuck. And instead of getting one person's idea or opinion, you get an entire room full of people. It's a brainstorming session on steroids is what I like to call it.
I love it. I love it. I'm a part of a couple of groups like that for coaches, and we call them masterminds, and they really are fantastic, because one of the phrases that I like is, you can't see the label from inside the bottle. So it's something that I might help somebody else with, and it's butter simple, super easy. Yeah. But when it's me, it's hard to see the label from the inside of the bottle.
Of course. Always.
Yeah. So what is the most exciting invention, your favorite invention that's come out of that group over the last, in the whole history of the group? What's your favorite invention?
Goodness, that is a hard choice. And there's so many, because I've worked with folks that's had everything from complex medical products down to simple garden tools and everything in between. One outlier actually is a simple garden tool, and it's kind of interesting. This was a guy that he worked at IBM, and on the weekends he loved to repair lawnmowers for people, fix up lawnmowers, and he had a real problem with cleaning out the chunked up grass from underside a lawnmower. So he came up with this idea for a product called the Grass Buster, and it was just a simple garden tool, but it was made in a certain way where it could clean the underside of a lawnmower in less than 30 seconds. And he went to this, wanted to go to this trade show. And he, when he first started out, by the way, he was all, he got doors slammed in his face. Nobody wanted to sell his product. Nobody wanted to carry his product. And so he wanted to go to this lawn and garden show in Louisville. And he asked me, he said, Don, would you go with me? I've never been to a trade show. I don't know anything about trade shows. And I said, well, Dan, the guy's name was Dan. Well, I used to call him Lieutenant Dan, as a matter of fact. I named him. And I said, Dan, I don't know anything about garden tools. And he said, that's okay. I don't know anything about trade shows. So it'll be perfect. So he talked me, it was in the early days. He talked me into it. So I went. And it was really, really interesting, because he went to this trade show. He'd had 2 small lots made of these tools. First one was kind of like the early, he might have made 100, 150 of this early run. And then he did another run about 200, 250 of a little better, a little cleaned up, little better model. So he went there with those products, because on the last day, they actually opened it up to the general public. Now, this is where it got really interesting, where I was really glad I went to it, because now I can tell this story. So he started selling them on that last day. By 10 a.m., he emptied the first box. By noon, he'd emptied both boxes. And it was really funny, because all those people that gave him the cold shoulder that were in other booths around that trade show are looking all around for what in the world is going on over there in that little corner of the trade show, because he had people 3 and 4 deep, all with money in their hands, wanting to buy his product. That was his game changer. Once he did that, then everybody was interested in carrying it. He wound up selling the product to another company, and the rest is history. So that's one of my more interesting stories, because I really got to watch the switch, the game change from not being, no one wanting it at all to everybody wanting it.
I like that a lot, because it speaks to, like, when I was in corporate world, everything in corporate has to be approved, manager after manager after manager after manager. Clayton Christensen wrote a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, which basically says, as you're the more bureaucracy that you get, the more approvals, and managers fundamentally can't take risks. That is actually, that might be their only job, right? Is to put things on a schedule and then make sure we hit the schedule, no risk of failure. But so you have a bunch of managers essentially being like, that's a dumb tool. Nobody wants it. But the market wants it, right? The market wants it. And I argue that corporate, if for the corporate folks out there listening, I understand that you can't risk the corporate reputation with your new idea. Come talk to Don and I. There are some ways around that where you can take the risk, find out if the market likes it without risking your company's reputation.
Yes.
But the market will surprise you. The market likes things that you don't think would work. And the faster you get to that understanding, the more successful you're going to be.
And that's so true, because I'll have people who will come to me and they'll say, Don, is this a good idea or not? And I always have the same answer for them. And that's, I don't know. I'm not the person that's going to tell you that. And neither is your spouse, neither is your best friend, neither is even the guy you get coffee from down at the corner Starbucks or wherever. And because you're in a relationship with those people, and they're not going to give you a good answer. Who's going to give you the right answer of, will it sell? Well, that'll be customers, and they'll say yes with dollar bills.
Yeah, and you vote with your dollars. That's I think that we should overhaul the tax system, and you should tell me how much I owe in taxes every year, but then I should get a checklist of everything that I want to fund. I'm not arguing about the number that I have to fund, right? Like,
that'll be fun.
I get to choose where the dollars go, right? Like,
exactly. Consumer driven.
I think that would be a super interesting. I told this to somebody and they got livid. They were like, no, because then nobody will fund blah, 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 blah. And I was like, right. And that could work against me. I'm good at that too. So
sure.
Yeah, voting with the dollars is a real thing. That's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, they do. I mean, and I see it all the time, where a lot of people have these misconceptions. A lot of inventors and entrepreneurs will have a misconception of, if I build it, they will come. Well, that only works in Kevin Costner movies. So
yes, you said that to me the other day. Yeah. I'm going to give you get a wait. You get a winner for that. Yeah. You build it and they will come only works.
I used to say, only works in bad Kevin Costner movies, but some people like that movie, so I kind of took the bad.
James Earl Jones in it. I mean, he's really that's funny. No, it works the other way as well. I was in a conversation. Right now, AI is the thing. I am CrossFit excited about AI. Like, if you met a CrossFitter back in like the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s, like that's how excited I am about AI.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, he's got this idea for an AI thing. I won't go into it because I don't want to. It was a good idea, legitimately, but he went on and on about why it was such a good idea. And my statements back to him were, I don't know if that works. Like, I understand technologically how we could do it, and I understand, but you need to articulate the value, and then you need to go ask a bunch of other people, because you explaining to me why it's so good doesn't make it good. It's what the market says. So the market may love something you hate, and the market may hate something you love. And
very true.
My favorite story about that, honestly, and it's a little bit controversial because I know that people sit on both sides of this, but is the Bud Light situation, right? Bud Light was America's beer. Like, there was no more America with an M than Bud Light. And then the marketing VP of that took a hard left and violated the marketing desires of the core audience.
Yeah. And
then she doubled down and she said, she got on an interview and she was basically said, well, those people are just Neanderthals if they don't like, she scolded them. She called it frat boy culture. Yeah. Yeah. That's 90% of your population. And so, like, now it's been boycotted for probably 4 years, close to 4 years.
I was going to say, how's that working out for them right now?
So single-handedly managed to destroy one of the national brands.
Yeah.
Because they didn't listen to the market, which is ironic for a marketing VP. Like, I personally hope she never gets a job again in the world, not because of her politics, but because she clearly doesn't understand the fundamental nature of
No.
advertising, which
No.
is let the market decide and then support the market.
You gotta find out from the people that are going to vote with their pocketbook. That is number one rule. Because I'll have so many people. It'll be one or two things. Either they'll want some validation from someone else who's not going to validate it with dollar bills. That's the Oh, but the guy that I know down at the so and so coffee shop, he thinks it's great. Well, did he buy one? No. Okay, well, that's not a good valid place to get your information. And the other one is where they got it so built up in their own mind of, no, I believe this is great. I just believe. Well, it's your baby. There's this paternal instinct that people have with ideas that they create. If you think you gave birth to the idea, so you kind of treat it like it's a baby. And I always say, if you treat your idea like it's a baby, it's going to behave like a baby. And I don't care if it's diapers or college tuition, babies cost money. And the day that you decide, though, that you're going to stop treating your idea like it's a baby and start treating it like it's a product, that's the day it begins to behave like a product. And products have the potential, not the certainty, but the potential of making you money instead of costing you money.
Yeah. And there's so many ways. Like I literally, I want you to know, I actually scheduled an additional 30 minutes to this one. And it literally just says Don Overflow. I'm excited. Well, before we jump into that though, Don, you sent me, sorry about technical difficulty there.
How do you avoid the very real danger of feature clutter when picking a product to buy? Customers have this built-in mechanism to deselect a product if it has too many features. Simple is better. This is why they call it minimal viable product. Let's get it out there and let's see what the market dictates of what they want, what they don't want. Be crystal clear and meaningful as to what your selling proposition is. They can focus on one thing. If you have to pick a feature, choose the one that resonates with the customer the most. So my question to you, what fear is holding you back? Leave the town of Tinkerville and get out there into the marketplace.
That's a fantastic slice right there, man.
I love that. Leave the town of Tinkerville.
Yeah. As an engineer, I'm a recovering engineer, as it turns out. We have a meeting once a week. It's actually automated. We don't have to go. But we get up and we say, I'm an engineer. If it ain't broke, it doesn't need more features. Yeah,
I just want to meet the ones that develop the average TV remote, because you've got 127 buttons. And when you really just probably use about 3.
Yeah, no, maybe if you have TiVo or something where you're using pause and stop and skip, but yeah, no, 100%. Your volume, channel, and it's not really even channel anymore with the new streaming services, right?
Oh, yeah. I know. Everything's just totally interactive, and I mean, I'll bet you 75% of the buttons on my TV remote, I'm like, I wonder what this does. And then I tear something up. So,
yeah. I'm imagining trying to explain that to somebody. They're like, oh, I'm like, well, this is a really cool feature. You just need to do this. And the reason, like the word just, anytime you as an inventor or as a leader or as a boss or as a friend say, oh, that word just contains 90% of the work in the universe, I think.
Yes.
I would have people saying to me, oh, no, we'll make this app. We just need to make this app and then we'll sell the data. We just need to get 1 million subscribers. And then I'm like, how are you going to get the first subscriber? They're like, oh, word of mouth. I'm like, no, that's not how it works.
Oh yeah. I love it when they say you just need to follow these 27 simple steps.
Yeah. Which have 17 sub points each. Yeah. The other way I've heard that is, this comedian's doing it. I'm going to butcher it, but he's like, yeah, I went to buy this guy's car. He's like, no, she runs like a beauty man. It'd be great. You just need to take this little screwdriver right here. And that's how you open the front door. And so then he goes, so then I sat down and I put in the key, and he's like, no, man, you have to hold the wire up. It gets a little bit tricky. You just do this, and you got to pump the brake 3 times, and then you hit the gas. And he's just, selling this flawless car that has all this little stuff. And
27 simple steps. I love it.
Yeah, no, it's totally reliable. She never lets you down. You just got to put a little oil in the radiator every now and then. Right. Yeah. No, that's our job. I think the reason Apple is such a raging success is like I have Apple TV at the house, and the remote is 1, 2, 3 buttons, I think. And there's some other ones on there, but mainly it's like just hit the play button, hit the remote, go back to menu button, and then hit the 2 side paddles to go left or right.
There's simplicity is profound. And so many people miss that, I think, when they're developing a product or even when they're starting a business.
Yeah. I think Einstein, I don't know if it's Einstein, but I think Einstein said you must distill it to its simplest form and no further. And that's the trick, is knowing when too simple is too simple and when you need to simplify more. So, yeah.
Absolutely. 5 slides on a presentation.
100%. Now I have a good friend. We share this friend, Tim Brown. We see him a lot of the circles that we run in. He introduced me to a book called The Mom Test. Have you read The Mom Test yet?
I think I may have heard of it, but I haven't read it yet.
Okay. I'm going to kind of float the premise to you and we can chat about it. So the premise is, when you propose your new product to somebody that like your mom, what does your mom say? Your mom says, "Oh, it's so great, honey. It's I believe in you and it's the best," right? And that interview where you're asking for feedback, the positive interview is the worst type of interview. Well, all you collected from that data was that they didn't like your product. Because if they liked your product, they would have bought it. But when they tell you how good your product is, that's their way of socially extricating themselves from the obligation to buy because it's not a good fit.
Yep.
And that has changed my world. The book's fantastic. Have you seen that? Or what do you kind of think of that concept?
Oh, yeah. No, it's whoever you're in a relationship with. Again, I don't care if you're buying coffee from, they're not going to want to call your baby ugly in public. They're just not going to do that. And they'll do anything. They'll make every kind. Oh, well, isn't that really a pretty bow that it's wearing? They'll go into any length to just completely not complain or say no or, well, that's ugly.
How do you avoid the very real danger?
There I go again.
Bar. Technical difficulty. On your show, you have a tech guy that runs your show, and I need.
Yes, I do. And
Right.
I could not do it without our tech folks.
All right, so I interrupted. So you're on a flow. You were saying that when you know somebody, they're gonna do anything they can do to not.
Oh, they'll go to any length at all to not do anything but compliment it, because they know it's your baby, and they're not going to call your baby ugly unless they don't like you. I had one person one time. They said they got negative feedback from their family on a night, no matter what it was, no matter how good it was like, no, this is awful, this is stupid. And family problems aside, I'm thinking, no matter if it's good or bad, it's probably not going to be good advice, because again, the relationship is coloring the whole feedback, and not in a way that's either good or bad. It's not going to be realistic.
Yeah, I've lost my train of thought there. I was listening to you. I was going to say something.
Oh, good.
I thought. Sorry about that. No. Oh, I know what it was. I have a friend that says, don't take advice from people that don't like your music. So if you're a classical pianist and you're like, oh, check this out, and you give it to a hard rock guy, like, did you know it's called dwarf metal in England right now? So people are dressing up like World of Warcraft, or like a dwarf, like from elves and dwarves and Lord of the Rings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and it's like heavy metal, like pounding.
Heavy metal meets Lord of the Rings, or
yeah. But I mean, it's good. Like if you're in, like, I'm not really a headbanger, but like I can see where it's good. It's I can understand that it's good. Anyway, But the advice is, if you're a classical pianist and you take it to a dwarf metal guy, he's going to be like, that's crap. You need to do this. You need a harder bass line. You need more distortion. And if you take the dwarf metal to the classical, they're going to be like, look, there's no chord changes. There's no arpeggios. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
So when you're soliciting advice, you got to make sure they like your music, and then you can take their advice. But if they don't like your music, just thank them for their time and move along.
Yeah. If you're trying to sell a lawnmower to a guy that never mows his lawn, you're not going to sell a lawnmower.
Right. He doesn't need it.
Yeah. So you really got to speak to your world.
So when you evaluate a product, so a product comes across your desk, somebody says, hey, I have this idea. How do you, because you touch such a wide range of ideas.
Mm-hmm.
How do you, in your head, kind of write down, I think this is going to be a success or worth pursuing or not? Or do you even make that judgment?
I try to be very, very objective, because I might be the guy that's in heavy metal headbanging music, and they may be a classic pianist. So I try not to do that. And again, when someone asks me, hey, Don, is this a good idea? I'm like, I'm not the one that can tell you that. What you need to do is find out from potential customers. And there's ways to do that. I mean, we did something at the Kentucky State Fair that actually had never been done before. This past year, well, we did it 1 year before, but this year we really upped our game. We did something called the Innovation Station, and we had a group of folks. They all had small lots of their product made, and they actually got to sell it out of our booth, big 20 by 20 booth. At the Innovation Station at the Kentucky State Fair. We had 750,000 people walking through that place. And I had inventor entrepreneurs walking away from that saying, Don, I have learned more about who my customer is in the last 10 days than I have the entire time I've been doing this. And it was a game changer for them.
That's awesome. That's awesome. What was the best seller from that event?
Oh, now this is a real interesting one. So I had this really laid back guy. His name's Ryan. He's a physical therapist. He developed this really, really cool product called the Ridge Walk. It's just insoles that are for plantar fasciitis. Now you got to know Ryan. Ryan is a really laid back guy, is not super salesy of any ilk at all. So when we go to set up, and everybody's like setting up their displays and their areas where they're going to sell their product, Ryan comes in with boxes of his insoles, and he takes a piece of cardboard, turns it into a sign with a magic marker, and just writes plantar fasciitis, and then tacks one of his insoles to it, puts it on the wall just outside the booth. And I'm thinking, oh, this is not going to end well at all.
Yeah.
What Ryan does is he goes and stands across the aisle, just quietly, not just like invisible back in the back. And he would watch for people to walk by his sign. And when they stopped, when they paused to look at it and read the sign, he'd walk up to them, escort them into the booth, set them down in a chair like they were at a shoe store, and he wound up with a 90% close rate. I have never seen that with a product ever before in my life.
I'm going to steal this story, man. This is marketing and sales 101. It's about the wording. It's about the problem statement. It's about the interruption. It's not about the website. The website, exactly. Yes. Oh my gosh.
The experience.
And he articulated to the person that needs it, plantar fasciitis, you need it.
Yes.
And he has your solution. And if you're not in that zone,
you're just going to walk past the sign.
You're just going to
walk what an ugly sign that is.
Oh my gosh. And the best way, and the way that he closes the deal is he's like, hey, have a seat. Let's try it.
Yeah.
And I call that I can prove, like it's I'll prove to you I can help you by helping you close. Like,
yeah. Right.
Man, that's so good.
It was amazing. It was the non-sales sales close.
The other thing that I love about that is the trigger. So he puts up this like just small little tripwire, and then when he notices their head go click like that.
Yep.
All right. So you have your demographic. Who's your ideal demographic?
Right.
You have your psychographic. somebody has plantar fasciitis.
Right.
You're in the right spot. They're here. Their foot hurts because they've been walking around, right? So
Exactly.
right person, right mindset, right place, trigger. Are
Yes.
they in a buying mood?
Mm-hmm.
Right? They might, on the way in, their foot doesn't hurt. On their way out, their foot hurts, right? Maybe. So
Right.
Finding ways. I have a couple of guys in my life right now that sell, it's now called data as a service. So just like when you and I talk on the phone, or like if we're at the networking event and I say something next to you, then it's going to show up on your phone, pretty soon. So we as little guys don't have access to that data traditionally, but because of data as a service, you can buy, it's like some people do it for $500 a month, it's $1,000, $2,000 a month. You can actually get an active daily feed of everybody you have to be smart enough to know what the trigger is. But if people are making a triggering, like, I don't know, like maybe if they bought swim trunks, maybe they want goggles, or maybe they want a beach umbrella. So, data as a service is how Amazon and everybody else gives us the related stuff. And there are some companies that are now offering that to me and you.
Ooh, nice. Leveling the playing field a bit.
Maybe. Leveling the playing field, as technology should. That's the purpose of technology.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you had the booth. Actually, I wanted to come, but then I had a conference during the same time and I missed it. But I'll definitely be out there.
Oh, that's cool. We'll do it again.
Yeah, I'll definitely be back out there. Okay, well, what's got you excited these days? So you're helping people. You got this community running. Hey, listen, if you're listening, you've stuck with us for 30 minutes here, and you got an idea, which I kind of imagine is the reason you're talking here. Reach out to Don. Tell him you heard him on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show.
Yes.
Share your idea with him. Free 15-minute consultation. I'll put the banner up on the screen here.
Absolutely.
KentuckyInventors.org. You can find his contact information there and go touch him. Go
KYInventors.org will get you right there. Absolutely.
Cool. Okay. Well, what's got you excited for the next 6 months, 12 months?
Oh, goodness. We are expanding. We aren't just inventors anymore. A lot of times people will see our name and they'll think, it's just a guy in a garage with a gadget. Well, I've got a lady in Louisville that's a children's book author. And now she's discovered a really, really creative way to teach manners to preschool children. And I consider her as much as an inventor as the guy with a gadget in the garage. So by, I guess, the start on the face definition, we're not just inventors anymore. We're inventors, entrepreneurs, anybody with an idea for a product or a business. And we are expanding. I mean, I've got a member in Ireland right now. Now, I wouldn't stay up till 2 a.m. to come to our meetings, but he does. So just go figure. So it's kind of a funny story how all this started. We just before COVID, we were trying to expand our organization and we were doing in-person meetings. This was probably about 2017, 2018. We were doing meetings in Louisville. We were doing them in Lexington. We were going to expand out to Bowling Green, all these different places across Kentucky. And it was just wearing me paper thin. And the RVP, the guy that works very closely with me on all this, Leo York, he suggested, hey, Don, let's try this new thing called Zoom. And now you got to remind you, it's 2018. So I said, okay, well, let's do a new online meeting and let's start reaching out to these different places that we really just can't physically go to everybody and see. And it worked really well. Well, then COVID hit. And our online meeting became our traditional online meeting because they all became online meetings, which they all still are today, which is a wonderful thing. And just a kind of a funny thing happened on the way to the internet is that now we have people from all over because other people in different parts of the country, be it Michigan, be it Florida, be it California, be it Texas, and all points in between. We've got folks that are coming to us. And a lot of that happened during COVID because a lot of these other physical meetings all dried up and nobody had anywhere to go. Well, we had a 2-year jump on COVID on Zoom for during COVID. And
yeah.
so we now have grown to a much more national audience, and that's become very exciting. I really feel like we're starting a movement of taking an idea and not just focusing on intellectual property protection, not just focusing on building the product or making a prototype. We have a lot of really good lean ways that we teach that. But actually turning it into a real product or a real business that actually makes money in the marketplace, and doing it in a lean way. And it was like you were talking about the big corporations that just kind of shut a lot of inventors down. I've seen inventors and entrepreneurs go to like these pitch competitions or some of these where you go and pitch in front of a whole bunch of VCs and see if they're interested. And I've had a lot of them say, "Go home. You will never sell one of these." And then they turn around, go home, and they end up selling a lot of them. So I have seen that happen a lot. And the reason for that, I think, is what I call the $5 million opportunity. There's a lot of large corporations that will they'll dismiss a product. Though this is trash, we could only sell 5 million of that. Well, we drop that at lunch. That's not really what we want to do. That's not an opportunity for us. Well, for a small startup, that is an opportunity, making $5 million a year.
Oh yeah.
So there's a lot of that opportunity that's out there. So remember, folks, Gilligan's Island and Shark Tank are both TV shows.
And they're designed for drama, and they're designed for numbers that are exciting. No, exactly. in all seriousness, and a lot of my clients are sub 5 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You hit $1 million in revenue, which means you're really only making maybe $100,000
right
of actual profit. You hit $1 million in revenue, and you have enough of a team, and you're saying, "What do I do next?" And then you work hard, and you hit 3 million, and you hit 5 million. Well, to a large corporation, they can't even afford the overhead to make that work.
It's a rounding error.
It's a round, right? Yeah, it really is a rounding error. Other large corporations have union contracts, like there's labor laws, and they can't afford. So they also have what's called a Superfund site. So if you take any manufacturer that has been here for 30 or 40 years, I guarantee you in the 80s and 90s, they were essentially dumping oil into the ground.
Oh yeah.
Like, I'm not saying they were doing it intentionally. I'm just saying at that time,
hospitals pouring formaldehyde down the drain.
They were literally pouring formaldehyde down the drain to go to the local local river. Yeah. So they can't afford to move their site because it's a Superfund site. It would cost millions to clean it up.
Yep.
And so they're stuck with this fixed cost structure. And then on top of the fixed cost structure, which is their land and their labor contracts, they have layers of management. I remember watching Mingy's Brother Beef Jerky go from like the local convenience store, like mom and pop thing, to what it is today.
Yep.
And I was like, "Oh, this is amazing." And a friend of mine opened my eyes. They said, "Well, the problem though is that they use kind of an expensive cut of beef, and that price will always be that price. They can't cheapen that, right?" So when you add a layer of management, you now have to double or triple or quadruple your production just to pay everything back, because you bought a VP, you bought a CEO, you bought an HR department. I have to catch myself. I think of it as I bought a CEO.
Right.
But a lot of people are like, "Well, no, that's labor." I'm like, no, labor is a cost. Labor,
we're like overhead.
it's an overhead. It's like I bought a shop, I bought a lathe, I bought a CEO. They have a function they're supposed to do.
That's funny. We work with a lot of people that do SBIR grants, and they've got really cool technologies, and we've seen some successes with that. And I always tell them, you don't have to be a PhD, but you can rent one.
100%. Yes. That's Grant Cardone has a commercial that comes across my Facebook fairly regularly, and he goes, "I didn't graduate college, but now I have 5 master's degrees and 4 PhDs, and I pay each one of them really well."
Love it.
Yeah. Okay, so I like that you're starting a movement. That's exciting, and you are the guy to do it because you have the experience and you have the heart for it. How can we help you start that movement?
Help us get the word out. We're looking for just more people to join our tribe, and we're always looking for support. So if there's organizations out there, if there's companies out there that would like to support a great cause, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and yes, and so we can be a nice handy tax write-off, and you're helping a lot of inventors and entrepreneurs and startups and small businesses across the country.
I am glad you mentioned that. I didn't know that. So that's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
So, hey, if you're listening to the show here and you are looking for some charitable giving this year, next year, and you're passionate about seeing the future of Kentucky and the bluegrass and really the nation spark innovation at its base level, reach out to Don and help him get the movement started. I love that. That's fantastic.
Help us build the backbone of the United States.
Oh, I love it. So what do? You do Inventors, right? The Kentucky Inventors Network. What do you do to teach people about marketing and sales?
What do I do to teach people about marketing and sales? We try to cover every base of it. Now, one of the things we do, we have 3 different meetings during the month. And the first meeting is, and I don't know why, we've always called it the open meeting. I guess because it's not a closed meeting, it's not members only. And we have usually throughout that year, we have an expert in one of the many different parts of the whole inventor, innovator process. Be it, sometimes we'll have an IP attorney. Sometimes we'll have a person who's an expert in prototyping. Sometimes we'll have a marketing person. Sometimes we'll have just all the different steps of the process, basically. So one of those things is marketing. However, we do teach a philosophy of taking a very lean marketing approach. Don't spend a lot of money before you don't spend a lot of money before you know whether that money is going to produce any kind of real ROI. And that's actually also true with all the different steps of the process. For instance, prototyping. I always tell people we don't call them prototypes. We call them Frankentypes and demo types. Frankentype is where you have snuck out to the graveyard of broken products and spare parts. You've used glue sticks and duct tape, and it looks ugly as all get out. But you have done a number of things. Number one, you prove it to yourself that it actually works. Because the first thing you're going to do is build a prototype, and you're going to say, I didn't know it was going to do that. Or, I didn't know it wasn't going to do that. And guess what? You have to rebuild it. I had a guy come into one of our workshops one time. And workshops the other meeting that we do. It's members only. We all work under closed non-disclosure agreement. You have to be a member, but it's a safe place where you can talk about your idea. Well, I had a guy approach me. He said, Don, I've got someone who's going to build my very first prototype, and they're only going to charge me $5,000. And I looked at him and I said, I am begging you, do not spend $5,000 on your first prototype, because the first thing it's going to do is break, or it's not going to work like you thought. And I said, you can go down. And it's funny because in the workshop, it's like everybody helps everybody else. And so everybody was jumping in and said, yo, take a $20 bill and go down to Lowe's and you can build. Because he described what it was. It was a box. It was a really cool box, and it did some really cool things, but it was a box. He said, go down to the hardware store, $20, you can build this thing yourself. And so we separate that into two things. One is the Frankentype. You build that, you prove it yourself, you get it going, it's humming, it's working. Then you move over to what we call the demo type. That's where, okay, now I know how it works. It works really well. Now I'm going to pretty it up, and I can actually display it. I can show it. I can do other things to it. And it's taught you about, actually the prototype becomes your teacher of this works, this doesn't work. You may throw up your hand and say, well, I spent $20 and it didn't even come close to working at all. And then you can go on to the next thing, or it may lead you to the next thing. And now here's where this springs over to marketing, because with marketing, it's the same thing. You get the demo type, you get a small run made, you get to that point. Now you're going out into the marketplace. And you're going to take it out to the marketplace, and you're going to be surprised because the market is going to now become your teacher and tell you what's going to sell about it. They're going to find that one aspect of it, that one feature, and say, nah, I don't really care about that. And they'll find this other feature that say, if it had that, I'd pay double for that if it had this. And it's the thing that you thought was awful, was stupid, no, there's no way I'll put that on there. Nobody will buy that. But you're letting the market, and not the inside of your head, and not your family. And this is kind of where we go full circle back to who's going to tell me it's a good idea. Well, the market's going to tell you that. And once you start getting that feedback, now you're starting to change the product again into what the customer really, really wants. And that's the marketing feedback that you need.
Yeah, no, I love it. Franken-type it, then prototype it, then it's going to change. I say that you have to create a product at least 7 times.
Yeah.
So first you have to create it in your head. You're like, oh, I need this widget. It's going to do all right. It's got a hook and it picks up the berries. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So now it's created. Then you have to draw it out and actually create it, like in a drawing. Then you have to make tooling. And I think people underestimate this part. Designing tooling is unto itself the harder part of the making of the widget.
Oh, it is.
A lot of time, like we're like, well, I just want this thing. And you can draw it up. It's got these curves and they intersect at this point and it's good. But then you have to make it. And if it has rails that move, you have to make it so that it slides and it attaches.
Mm-hmm.
You have to figure out how the screws go in it. A lot of times you'll find yourself in a spot where you're like, oh, well, it has a hinge right here in the middle. And question in the back, how do you get the hinge in there? I don't know. You got to assemble it somehow.
They call it design for manufacturing. That's what we like. Yeah.
So then once you've made the tooling, now you have to go build the tooling, and sometimes you have to make tooling to make the tooling, which is ironic.
Yeah.
And then so you take 7. You have to redesign this stupid thing 7 times, and then you make it the first time. It's just like a new model car, and then you're like, oh crap, that door wears out pretty quickly. Or, oh, when the seal is gone, then it leaks, and then you have to 7 more times go back and rework it. Yeah.
A lot of iterations, and the more lean you can do that, the better off you are.
Yeah. Well, man, we are running a little bit low on time here. Do we want to open another can of worms, or you want to say anything to the audience?
I'm up for anything.
I'm up for anything. Let's do. You sent me a whole bunch of one-liners. Don is fantastic for one-liners. Let's talk about wisdom here. Let's talk about wisdom for a second.
Absolutely.
So, I think that we invent things, and we are really proud of ourselves for inventing things. We tell our mom and dad say, oh, I'm proud of you. We watch Shark Tank, and we're like, oh, I had an idea that mom and dad I'm going to be a millionaire. And then we go about spending $5,000 on our first prototype, right? But you bring up wisdom. Explain to me what you mean by wisdom and how that plays in.
Absolutely. Well, I always say you put 3 things into an idea for a product or a business. You put time, you put money, but you put this third thing, this intangible thing, this what the modern society considers an arcane old word that I think really needs to become more popular in the culture today, and that word is called wisdom. And if you think about it, there's an old proverb that says wisdom is more valuable than gold, and that makes a lot of sense if you think about it, because with those 3 things, if you go out with your idea for a product or a business and you spend tons of money and you spend tons of time and you don't acquire the wisdom first, you will take that time and that money and you will likely pour it down a hole. Why? Because if you don't have the wisdom first, you won't know where to spend the time or the money. And I've had ringside seats of this where people have gotten research grants and all of these things to the tune of $200,000, and I've watched them flush every bit of it because they did not acquire the wisdom first. And if you don't acquire the wisdom first, you'll be throwing darts at a wall with a blindfold on. You don't know if you're hitting people or walls or what you're hitting, but you're totally blind. So you have to have that wisdom first. That wisdom's extremely valuable. Even if somebody is well funded, whether it's a grant, whether it's investors, whatever, I always tell them, do not act like you have that money. You act like you're just like pulling coins out of couch cushions, because you'll make your mistakes early on. And the bigger the mistakes you'll make, the biggest mistakes you'll make will be early on in the process. No matter what business it is, no matter what product it is, all the biggest mistakes are going to happen early. And how expensive do you want those mistakes to be? If you've got a lot of money and you want to flush through it in 6 months, then you can flush through it in 6 months with really, really big mistakes. But if you act like you don't have a lot of money and treat it like it's lean, this is where a lot of people say, well, I just don't have the money to get started with this. No. Acting lean is actually a good thing. The ones that are well funded should be acting like that. And again, that's kind of part of our philosophy. If you don't have to be lean, act like you're lean.
Yeah, no, I love that. Actually, my first business, I suppose, I was in charge of this one. I just invested in it. We essentially torched a bunch of money.
Oh yeah.
Because we bought the nicest, first of all, we staffed up before we had clients, and then we had the nicest computers, and we had the nicest facilities, not like mahogany, but like it was a daycare. And we got all the equipment for all the rooms. We hired all the staff. We brought them on for months in advance, and we trained them. So they were just like maids sitting there ready to do their job with nothing to do. And in the course of a year, the guy racked up about $800,000 in debt. When you start messing with real estate and staff salaries, it happens pretty quick. Yep. And you know what the advertising budget was for that whole project?
How much?
$1,500.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. And you know why it was $1,500? Because I put it in there when I found out that they didn't have it out. I bought a sign. We didn't even have a sign for the building. We just had a beautiful internal of the building.
If we build it, they will come.
If we build it, they won't come. Yeah, totally. And they were stunned. And I would ask for the books every week. I was like, hey, can I see the books? And they were like, no, well, yeah. And they just mealy mouthed me. And finally, it almost came to a slugfest. Like I almost punched the guy. And I was like, you're going to effing show me the book right now. No book. Didn't exist. Wow. And so the guy ends up having a nervous breakdown and like screamed at the board, and then left the state and didn't come back for 10 years. Just like, wow. So he was a good dude. I'm not like picking on him. Like,
right.
Well, he was an average dude. Like he wasn't evil is my point.
Right.
He just got in over his head, and he had no ability to get out of it. So he just kept hiding it, and then just hoping that something would resolve. No, nothing's resolving.
That's the worst way to face anything.
100%, right? No, yes, that's the worst way to face it. So how do you go about acquiring wisdom? What's the cheapest way to go about acquiring wisdom?
Absolute best way is learning from others who've already you've got two options. Number one is you make very painful mistakes yourself. And you're like, okay, well, I paid my tuition and now I have learned a very, very valuable lesson. Or this is the cheap way, this is the best way to do it, is to learn from other people who have already gone through that and already made those mistakes.
Yes.
And that's where, again, that's kind of what it always reminds me of our workshops, because you've got somebody that's coming in and they're saying, oh, I'm going to pay $5,000 for my first prototype. And we're like, no, we're begging you, please do not do this. I've been that way. The bridge is out and it will not end well for you.
The bridge is out. Yeah. I just moved back to town, and a gentleman was passionate about a water sport product. I don't want to embarrass him. It was an interesting project, but he asked me to design it and to prototype it. And I was like, and I actually turned him down. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have turned him down, but I was like, the number of hours it's going to take me, and then we're going to have to spend a couple $1,000s on tooling. We have to make it. No, I will
Yeah.
not take your money because this is not like, we haven't proven that the market wants it. The market already has 2 products that are similar to this.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an idea of how much those are selling. And our product is going to be more expensive, but there's going to be some friction involved for the customer.
No differentiators.
Yeah, no differentiators. And you're late to the party. I'm not taking your money. I'm not going to help. Like,
Yeah.
I had the capacity for it, but I was like, I can't in good conscience be a part of this game.
Yeah.
And,
That's not even being a fast follower.
Yeah, it wasn't. And yeah. And I was like, why don't you just take, and it was kind of one of these games where he didn't want to buy the product that was a competitor. And
Mhm.
so he had thought of a way to make one. And he was like, well, I'll just, and then he said, oh, I've thought of one, so we should make it into a product. And the answer is no. Just spend $1,000 and get the thing that's on the market.
Yeah. And a lot of times people, especially inventors, will they like, it's like my product or nothing else. Well, you could get a lot of really good experience by just selling other people's products in that marketplace. It doesn't have to be your exact idea or even so close to it, but
you get the market data. You get to know
you get the market data. Exactly. And that's another big thing we teach is you got to get out there in that world. You got to learn what that world is like on the inside. I've always said, let's say you came up with a great product that McDonald's, you think, oh, McDonald's is going to love this. This is going to just be the best thing for their workflow and frying hamburgers or whatever. And I'm thinking, okay, well, if you're going to do that, first thing you need to go do is go work at a McDonald's. You need to get on the inside of that place. And, if it's a part-time job, and if you can't go to work at the McDonald's for a little while, go become really, really, really good friends with somebody who is, and learn everything you can about what's going on inside of there and anything that has to do with that functionality. So then you'll really know, is this really going to work or not in this world?
Yeah.
A lot of people use what I call cartoon logic. It works really well in a cartoon, but in real life, it's not so much.
Yeah. Like, for instance, the old joke about a motorcycle is, well, I got a motorcycle, so then I needed a trailer for it. And now I have a trailer, so I need a garage, and I need a truck to pull. No, I had the trailer, so I need a truck to pull it. And now I need a garage to put my truck in. So the motorcycle is actually this other purchase, right? It's fun to like razz your buddy when he gets the motorcycle about. But the point here is, a lot of times the invention that you come up with may actually work quite well, but you have to then house it, or it doesn't really fit on a road. Like, actually, the McDonald brothers ran into this. They were moving their building from one spot to another, and they had to get it underneath an overpass that was too short.
Yeah.
So
took the building apart, didn't they?
Yeah, they had to take the building apart. Yeah. So a lot of times your idea works, except for that one bridge you have to get underneath. And then that's the reason that nobody else has done it, is because everybody's like, oh, the bridge.
That's a great movie too. We which kind of reminds me, there's another thing we do called Inventor Entrepreneur Night at the Movies. Yeah, it's something we started out just to do as filler during the summer and like in January and times like that. And I thought, okay, well, let's take a movie. So and the Founder is one of the big ones we've done. Where we'll take a movie. We don't just sit around and watch a movie. We actually take selected scenes from a movie that's surrounded inventors, entrepreneurs. We've done The Founder. We've done Joy Mangato's story about the Miracle Mop, and all of these different inventor entrepreneur centric movies. And we take selected scenes, we watch the scene, then we stop the action and go through, okay, what were they going through? What was this challenge? What was this big mistake they were about to make? And how did they deal with it and get out the other side of the thing? So it's become one of the more popular. I've had universities actually ask me to do these and for some of their classes. It's pretty. The funny thing, we just kind of came up with it as filler, a meeting filler.
No, that's fantastic. I did something similar for a couple of weeks in a row. We'd all watch Shark Tank together.
Oh, yeah.
And then I would pause the Shark Tank episode, and before the judges said anything, I'd be like, all right, what would you do? And we would talk through the judge deal. Like, oh, that's a great product, but it lacks distribution, or that's a great product, but it's, overheads, or this is how much it's worth. This is how I would cut the deal. This is how much percentage I would offer. Yeah, those type of things are amazing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's another one. Actually, you reminded me of another one we do called Kickstarter Pass or Fail. So we'll take like selected Kickstarter campaigns, and we'll show the video, we'll show the project, and then everybody gets to vote. Do you think they got their funding, or do you think they did not? And then we talk about why. So that's a lot of fun.
I love it. I love it. I think the other thing we haven't talked about for wisdom here is just to pay somebody to teach you.
Yes.
I tell people all the time, my daughter is playing soccer. So, you know what she has? She's 10 years old. She has a coach, right? And then my sons have coaches for swimming. And my daughter just got hired to be the coach for diving, because when you're learning a sport, you need a coach.
Yes.
And then there's this funny window. And the longer I've been doing executive coaching, the funnier it gets to me. People get out of high school and they're like, I don't need a coach because I know what I'm doing. However, when you look at pro athletes and you look at Olympic medalists, they have lots of coaches.
Yes.
So you're just starting out, you hire a coach, so you learn the sport and you learn a couple of tricks. And then people are like, I'm too good for a coach. And those are the amateurs. And then the pros have like 5 or 6 coaches. So I tell people all the time, like, well, you don't need a coach, but you also don't need a gold medal. So like, if you don't want a gold medal, then don't get a coach.
There you go. Yeah.
Totally cool. But if you're a professional, go get a coach. In fact, get a coach for speaking, get a coach for marketing, find people in your life that can help you hyper thread to the place where you need to be. Don't learn the lessons yourself. That's silly.
Yeah. And that's something we do as well. Sometimes I just fail to mention is we do coach one-on-one coaching for select individuals, people, startups, inventors that just need that extra level of help and support. So we do a lot of that through different programs. If you're in a certain county, we're actually doing a project with the USDA right now to help folks in certain rural counties. And then, of course, we also do it for if you're not in those counties as well. So I always like to say I'm available for birthdays, bar mitzvahs. But you're right. I mean, people that don't think they need coaching, they don't think they need help, and they kind of think they've arrived at a spot. My philosophy is, everyone knows something that I do not know. And therefore, I need to seek out and find these people that know things that I don't know and learn from them. And hence, every person is really my teacher. So, but if you really want that at the next level, hire a coach. Yeah.
And if you're not ready to make that investment, my advice is read books.
Yes.
I have a budget, a line item in my budget, my family budget, which my wife hates. And it is expressly for getting audiobooks. And I get 2 to 4 audiobooks a month, which means 1 a week. And I do it when I run. I do it when I work out. Because it's the cheapest coach you can possibly buy. A book.
Absolutely.
Yeah. A book is somebody that's achieved success at a high level and has said, I'm going to distill down my thoughts in the most precise way I can. And I'm going to sell it to you for $20. Like, that is the cheapest. And it takes you 4 hours to spend with them, right? You're now spending 4 hours with a genius who's succeeded and has now distilled their genius for you for $20. Like, how can you not just buy books? Like, the reason I don't have libraries is because my wife won't let me. Get a book, make it a habit in your budget and in your time budget to read books. That's the best way to get into coaching, or to get a coach for cheap.
Funny enough, I prefer audiobooks as well. It's I call it eyes free reading, pretty much.
Eyes free. No, that's right. That's right. My wife says she's like, it's not reading if it's an audiobook, and I'm like, because I'm listening and you're looking at the page. I'm not saying she's wrong. I'm just saying.
To each his own.
To each his own. All right. Well, we have run out of time here, Don. It is a pleasure to have you on the show. Love that you share your wisdom with us. Love that you've dedicated this second chapter of your life to helping entrepreneurs in the ecosystem. I'm going to give you the last word, and then we'll be out.
All right. if you are interested in being a part of our tribe, there's two good ways to do it. Powered Inventing TV, if you want to. We've got over 300 videos on my YouTube channel, 300 videos and growing. And so you can learn a lot of free wisdom there. You don't even have to pay for that. And then also join us, be a part of our tribe. The difference between a live wire and a dead one is connections. And you can connect with a lot of the right people, kyinventors.org, and join us for a meeting and see what we're all about. And if we look like we're a fit, join us, become a member.
I love it. Hey, I'm going to put a little more teeth to that. Don's amazing. Don's done it. Don has done it, has exited, has helped other people, and he's done that for years and years and years. If you have an idea, you don't know where to go next, reach out to Don. Tell him you heard him here on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. And with that, we are out.